see you wear one. Very pretty.
Hello.
It is very
And it matches.
Hi, Matt. Matt.
Hi, Matt.
How are you guys?
Good.
Good,
Let's call this meeting to order. This is the LUZO Advisory Group and Planning Board meeting, and this was advertised in the newspaper. Kim is handing me the advertisement right now.
But it
Thursday, February 5th, 2026.
was not on the town's website, so you need to ask them to do that, please.
Ah,
Someone needs to ask.
The agenda's not on the website? Are
Meeting
you
is not-
sure?
Yes, I
Because
just,
I'm the one that always sends it to them.
Okay.
sending it and receiving it.
I'm gonna have to send,
I will say I just joined via a link that was on the agenda on the website. It wasn't on the calendar, but it was under the agendas and minutes section of the website.
Needs to be on the calendar.
Okay, no, good, thank you, Seth.
I'll mention that, and I do have to submit to them early next week a blurb for the town report about the great activities of this committee, and so and when I send it to Claire, I will
Remind her. to
remind
add
her about
the-
that. And also, I'm here for any do's or don'ts or requests for or not that anybody here in the committee may have about what we might want to. But I mean, I'm really just gonna do a blur about what we've done and why for this year and why we're doing it, and that we'd love to have more people doing this and so that's basically it. If you have any other specific suggestions, either now or before the end of the weekend, just let me know. All right. The other general business is we probably do need to talk about getting more people in the committee. And that would be nice. The only suggestion that I've heard, maybe I'm sure you'll have some good suggestions. The only suggestion I've heard is maybe asking whether or not some of the sort of allied committees in the town, like the Economic Development Committee or something like that, like we asked them to try to get someone to join.
I'm already on that
On
committee,
the
yeah.
committee?
I'm on it, gotcha.
All right.
Okay, sorry,
That doesn't
name another one.
Okay.
Somebody else.
Harbor Committee.
Alan Kimley's not on this committee?
No, he's not. He used to be.
That's one he's not on.
One,
He was, but he was on.
yes. So he could join two others or something. I don't know, Sustainability Committee, I don't know who's on that. I know Phil is, but
Phil, yeah.
he's got other things he's doing. So anyway, if you have any other specific ideas or any individuals or other people you'd like to buttonhole and get them to apply to join this committee, I think that would be appreciated. So. Because it's work and it's hard to divide it up between the few folks who are here. But we will, in the meantime, soldier on. We have submitted to the planning board, and they passed on to the warrant committee and the select board. You'll see them, and I'll be come to that meeting. Is it the next one, the next warrant committee meeting on the 3rd or something? It's on the 3rd. So maybe it's the one.
It's the night of my budget and the.
Yeah, and I'll come to that. And we will be presenting, all those will have already been passed on by the planning board. So unless you want to talk about any of that stuff, that's kind of done and gone, and we'll see it at the warrant committee meeting. All right. I don't have anything else. Anybody have other committee business? Okay, if not, initial discussion, potential zoning and land use changes that may come from the comprehensive plan process. That sounds, I didn't sort of, I mean, that was, Matt suggested that, and that's great. It sounds kind of, how do you say it?
It's two maps, if you
Vague
wanna
to me.
Put one down there.
And there are maps. So, Matt, I would, first of all, hope your dad's doing well. And, are these both the same?
Yes.
Okay. And
Yeah, there should be 2 copies of the zoning map.
Right.
They're the same.
What are you suggesting that we do with this and the comprehensive plan committee? Because the comprehensive plan committee isn't too far down the road in terms of it's really still, I mean, it's still in just like learning mode of the various different groups. We're not at the point where we're actually making policy recommendations. We're not there yet.
Correct. For that committee. This is really just more of like, sorry.
Wait a second.
I kind of think that we've made great progress. I
No, I'm
don't,
not saying we've made progress. I'm not saying that.
Yeah, I mean, I know like the future land use conversation on the comp plan committee is not finished yet. I know that Noel and Suzanne are going to be doing more exercises with that committee in particular in the coming months. But this is really was kind of more of like a workshop kind of mode idea where, when we were talking about potential changes that could go before the warrant committee that we didn't take on this time around. Kim had sent some suggestions to Noel and I. One of them was within the building code under dimensional table. There's a footnote, note G, which talks about for allowing a primary residential use in shoreland commercial district, you have to meet the dimensional requirements of the neighboring shoreland residential district, and this requirement doesn't apply to workforce housing. And so we were going to change that this time around, but as I went through the zoning map, there are parts of the map where the language was like particularly unclear, because like the way it's phrased, it sounds like all shoreland commercial districts should abut the same type of shore like residential district on either side, but there are some cases where the shoreland commercial has two different shoreline residential zones on either side of it, and it doesn't really give you instruction on which of those zones. They're both neighboring, but it doesn't tell you which one you have to use. So put a primary residential use in that zone. And so as Noel and I were talking about it, he was like, well, like maybe it's worth having a discussion on like maybe some of these ones that are currently zoned shoreland commercial don't need to be. Maybe some of these ones that are like, why is like on the very far eastern side of the zoning map along Stone Sound, you'll see in the like two little pockets of shoreland commercial, and then there's like a small pocket of SR3 in the middle. Like I have no idea what's in there, but there's so shoreline commercial actually abuts this one residential piece, and so it's like, well, do those commercial places need to be commercial still? Like, does it make sense to change those? And so this was kind of going to go through, and then the conversation became like, well, maybe we should do this for every zone, and make sure like, because again, the zoning really won't come out of the comp plan necessarily. Future land use will, and so future zoning should line up with that future land use, but you have existing zones too, and so it's worth talking about, do these existing zones make sense where they are? Are there parts of town that you've started to already see like incompatible uses that exist? So maybe the prior zoning wasn't quite right. So starting to have conversations about those types of observations. Again, we're not going to answer all that tonight, but kind of just priming everybody to start to have those conversations, because over the next year, you likely will have to kind of begin to like making some of those decisions.
Well, I guess I would say if the Land Use Advisory Committee's mission is not to initiate changes,
Is that one too?
but to attempt
Yep.
to facilitate changes
That's
that come from
right.
other decision-making bodies, such as the select board or
Mhm.
or maybe the comprehensive plan. I'm not sure what we should be doing at this point.
Well,
And
let's
this-
stick with the shoreline commercial district, because again, it exists, and there's currently language in the ordinance that isn't clear. And so, I mean, I would think it would be this body's responsibility to kind of read that language that's already in the existing ordinance and then talk about how to make that piece clearer. So when like a neighboring
Is there a
commercial,
way that, yeah, I
Sorry.
mean, is there a way that we can just keep the commercial lots that are in these SCs to stay commercial and then just rezone the residential ones to the SR, 3? Guess it is that way.
yeah, you could, and I don't know what the history of that note was. So yeah,
Where is-
I don't.
To
Sorry.
back up. Where's this note?
It's footnote G.
It's
I thought
footnote G under the dimensional table.
Go to your dimensional.
Okay.
You got it, yeah, okay. So it's right there.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
And if you look here, SC, it says there's a G.
Okay. Primary residential use in a shoreline commercial district must meet the dimensional requirements of the neighboring shoreline residential district. Well, okay, this requirement does not apply to projects that include covenants held by a qualified workforce housing entity.
Yeah, so you got Abel's here.
Yes.
And then you've got the campground,
Mhm.
Mount Desert Campground. And then you've got Jacques Williams here, but then you've got these lots up here that are residential that for some reason are also shoreline commercial when they should probably be what the adjacent residential district is.
Unless people start going onto this whole bandwagon again about the fact that those are probably rental homes.
Oh, yeah, they probably are.
They are, but even if they're rental, they're not considered commercial. They're not-
I agree with you.
Well, they're not.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's Jacques Williams and then
Musetti's.
the campground.
Yeah.
And there's
The
a
campground, yep, and
Yeah.
then Chambers is in there.
Yep.
And then Debbie Musetti, because she's all, but those should be, even though they're rentals, they should be considered residential,
Right.
not
Mhm.
commercial.
I just, what,
Well, isn't that a pretty big policy decision though?
Doesn't footnote G a response to people building in the commercial district after?
Well, we don't know why that was added. It used to be in the VC and SC. We had it removed from the village commercial zoning district.
That's
That footnote G,
yeah.
but we
I
didn't
think
take it
up to
out.
the point that Kim and Noel have history, it was they added the shoreline residential, like the abutting shoreline residential district, because before it just said the abutting district, and people were trying to use non-shoreline zoning dimensional standards.
We changed that.
Right.
We just,
We had dealt with that situation, but it has to stay in the shoreline if the property is within 250. Yep.
right, no matter if it's residential or commercial, it's kind
But I mean, it could be SR3 or SR2. It'd be SR3 if it makes sense coming this way, because this is already SR3. It's SR2 that way beyond Jacques Williams. But keep the commercial districts. See, Branscome's Cove used to be,
right, that was commercial.
that was commercial, but now it's strictly residential. That should change to SR1. And then, of course, the marina should stay SC, Northeast Harbor Marina.
In the fleet area.
No, the fleet's residential.
And what's it?
It's SR1.
What's the swim club?
It's like it's.
It's SR1. Same with like Clifton Dock. That should be,
Are those residents there?
but Clifton Dock's lot. Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. But Clifton Dock's lot is SR1, I think. Oops.
I'm not really sure.
I mean, like a simple language change to that particular note would be you could either make it so that it has to use, the neighboring shoreline residential zoning requirements that are most restrictive, or you could say whichever one's least restrictive. And that way, if there's two different zones, it's at least instructive on which one you have to use. So like in the area I'm looking at now, again, on the very far eastern side of the map, there's SR3 and SR5 abutting what appears to be like one lot. That's shoreline commercial. So if someone wanted to put primary residential use there, it's not clear if they should build to the standards of SR3 or SR5.
This one.
Oh, that one on the sound. Okay, yeah,
SR3 and 5.
Yeah.
That's Abel's.
yeah. What problem are we trying to fix?
The lack of clarity in the language.
And
Because right now it just says you have to use the abutting shoreline residential district, but if there's more than one abutting shoreline residential district, it doesn't give you instruction on which one to use. So again, a simplest decision or change would be to choose either the most restrictive or the least restrictive. I guess it would depend on, like it's kind of a tough zoning discussion, but it's like, well, is this actually like, would anyone put a primary dwelling unit here? And if so, like, is it a place that makes sense for it or not? And again, I don't know what all these shoreline commercial spots are, so I don't really know the answer to that. You could playing it safe would just be saying whichever one's most restrictive, but then you may be restricting potential housing in some regard.
Well, I would suspect that any suggestion is gonna need a fair degree of notice and input to the people who live or work or own commercial property.
For sure, we're not doing anything with it right now. Again, this won't, if anything comes of it, it won't be a change until 2027's town meeting. But it's just kind of starting the discussion and getting you guys thinking about like these types of zoning chats we're probably going to have for the next year.
You talked, or do we talk, or does the town want to involve the harbor committee in this in any way, or the harbor master? Because if you start changing some of those things, I just see docks going out.
Mhm.
And that would be something we'd want to involve the harbor master with, right?
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. I mean, I'm sure, one way or the other, hopefully someone from the Harbor Commission joins this body. But yeah, if not, then we would organize a way to get the information in front of them before it goes to town vote, before it goes to the warrant committee, more than likely. Involve them sooner.
Still a little bit, if you'll pardon the expression, at sea here, because I get the idea that you'd want to be clear about what shoreline residential zone requirements they need to follow if they're gonna build residences. But if we're talking about actually changing those shoreline commercial districts to something else,
I think the
I
working
think that's
waterfront
a
people
whole
will
different
come-
question.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't, again, I mean, the question I want to talk about and see what you guys might be comfortable with is the change to the language about the note. So how to make it answer, like, so there's not this open-ended question when there's two residential zones that abut that commercial space or commercial zone.
And regardless, even if we changed the zoning, they're still gonna abide by it because of that footnote. So you're not changing any like dimensional requirements.
Yeah, the question is which dimensional requirements.
That's what and that's what he's talking about.
And how do you go about deciding? Should it be the more restrictive or less restrictive?
I think,
I mean, that's the question, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose you get the lots that are there to see how close they are to one of the zoning districts versus the other, I guess.
It seems like that might be the only way, or not the only way, but
A good way because, right, because you're trying to, like say it's 2 acre zoning, and somebody has the 2 acres and meets the shore frontage, why would you make it SR3?
You
You'd
meet,
make a non-conforming lot.
how about you meet the
Yeah.
requirements of the shoreline residential district that's closest to your lot? Which doesn't create, I mean, it means that some people at one end of the shoreline commercial district are gonna have one set of requirements and somebody at the other are gonna have another. But there's different requirements here.
The only thing that's different is the lot area. That's
Right.
it. They have the same setback, same lot coverage, same everything else. It's only the lot area. So instead of 2 acres, up here is 3 acres.
But didn't Matt propose this for those lots that are abutting two different zones?
Yes.
Not necessarily the
Yes.
district.
Right, so
So-
there's,
Yeah, what,
Very
I
limited.
mean, it would be just this area here.
Right.
or I couldn't
And-
really tell. It looks like maybe some of Hall Quarry is
Oh.
like equidistant from like one of the other, like between two residential zones. I mean, again, if you had if you were bringing a project, you could have a surveyor or somebody actually give you a distance, whichever zone you're closest to. But just looking on a map, it's not super clear. But then, yeah, there's the one lot that's between SR5 and SR3, which I think is one lot based on this map, at least as far as I can see the lot lines. So it's not closer to either one of them.
There's Clifton, right? It has a little bit of orange. Is that about where they are?
Yeah.
Do we need to have,
Mhm.
I mean, the other
That's
larger
actually-
policy question is, do you
Okay.
actually need 3 acre lot
This one isn't.
minimums
Right. No.
Not sure why. it's
on
not.
the shoreline zoning? I mean, that's a big piece of property.
What is it? Sorry.
I mean, you've got shoreline residential 3,
Mhm.
it's a big piece of property,
It's 3 acres.
right? Do we
Yeah.
want to be, I mean, if you're talking about comprehensive plan priorities, do we actually want to be encouraging the biggest lot possible?
What's your goal?
Well, all right, right. Well, if the goal is being
More
able to
housing.
build more housing.
Okay.
Well, shoreland's not gonna allow that, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, there's that too. And the other thing is, building more housing is lovely, but I don't think that the year-round population is gonna build more housing in the shoreland zone. Just-
Unfortunately, no.
No.
I agree with you,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
So,
Not in our lifetime.
Probably not.
Yep, not anymore.
And if they do, it's a guest house. I mean, it's not a,
right,
it's not a, yeah,
it's a family compound.
right.
Workforce housing would probably still be a stretch in the shoreline.
I'm gonna go with that.
Yeah, very much so.
I'd love to have a workforce house.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I think it would be,
Same.
I
Yeah.
think it would be the just thing to do. Some workforce housing in Ox Hill.
Mhm.
Make sidewalks, not a good idea.
And at the same point you're trying, also you could end up creating non-conforming lots if you don't do this right, which is something that you don't want to do.
Right.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Any thought to shrinking the shoreland zone? To the 250?
Yeah, like right, well, the way the map is now, it goes way beyond the 250.
Yep.
Mhm.
And then I don't know how, we'd have to address split zoning at that point too, I would think, at some point.
Yeah, and I mean like in Ellsworth, they did split zoning with the shoreland zone. It was kind of simple. If the project was wholly or in part within the shoreland zone, you followed shoreland zoning requirements. And then if you're constructing only on land upland outside of the 250 feet, you could just follow that base zone's requirements.
I think that's how it works now with split zoning as far as setbacks.
Hmm.
But as far as dimensional, lot area requirements for development of a dwelling unit, if the lot is wholly or partially in the shoreland zone, you gotta meet the dimensional requirements for each dwelling unit. We're different than DEP is on that. We're more strict.
Gotcha. Okay. Then yeah, because then I guess you would just treat the whole lot like it's in the shoreline zone, which I think is what your zoning map does do now.
A lot of the lots
Yeah.
are like.
Because yeah, if you changed the zoning to just be like this 250 would remain the shoreland zone, and then you'd have to figure out what kind of zoning would go outside of the 250 in every location. That'd be a pretty big change.
Yeah, well, that was discussed though, because the shoreland and just some of the zone, I mean, the whole lot, just because it touches the water, the whole lot becomes shoreland
Mhm.
zone. It just doesn't make sense for development purposes, but I mean, we're more strict.
Mhm.
Yeah, and from a policy point, again, like it depends on what you're trying to develop, what the goal of you're trying to develop in the shoreland zone is. I think like right now we just all discussed how year-round housing likely wouldn't even end up near the shoreland anyway. And so if the goals for like year-round housing, maybe it's more about like how do you make your residential inland zones more development friendly or allow for denser housing, as opposed to changing the shoreland zone.
Mm.
Although, yeah, I mean, I'm just looking around the map, like SR5s, those are big lots, and I mean, I don't know what's there. You might not want to build on that anyway, but a lot of it's not shoreland zone. Even if it's like outside of the 250, a lot of it is just kind of this extra, like there's one lot that doesn't even abut the water that's technically SR5, and I don't know why.
With these discussions, I realize that it's bowing to reality, but we're also by policy locking economic disparity and inequality into baking it into land use by saying, well, we'll never build in those areas, or we'll never do this, or we'll never do that. I'm uncomfortable with that, but I realize the economic reality. I just don't know how and when we solidify that in town policy and town ordinances. say, well, that's just the way it's gonna be.
Where's here way? Right?
Where's what?
Here way, just curious, right? Where-
It's right,
Oh, yeah, it might be,
yeah,
yeah,
it's right
right
there.
there.
Yeah.
Curious how far it was
That's
from.
VR.
That's
Yeah,
the
yeah,
R2.
I was just curious how close it
One,
was to.
two, yeah, one.
Well,
Well, if we shift that shoreline,
Shifts.
now that we're more, we got 2 foot contours with
Mhm.
LiDAR,
Mm-hmm,
may shift this into that zone.
yeah,
We
just
change,
something
you know,
to
if we
think about,
all that shoreline now, because it's changing so much.
right?
well, I gotta say, this just feels outside of my time zone. This feels in my competence zone to be talking about proposing, changing, especially without any outside impetus to do so. I don't quite get why I still don't get why we're really focusing on this. I understand the inconsistency. I do get that. Have you had concerns, problems, issues with people coming in?
Yeah, actually, planning board dealt with one application where the attorney representing the potential buyer was using the zone behind them, which was 1 acre zoning, and they were trying to cut a 1 acre lot, but you can't. It's within 250 of the water, so it has to follow, and it was gonna be strictly residential, so it's not shoreline commercial. So because of that footnote, they had to follow the residential zone that went along the shoreline, which was SR3, I believe, or 2. They could have used either one, but because it was just on the other side of, you know, Jacques Williams lot, which is SR2, where it changes, but then SR3 is up further. So I said, well, we can use SR2, but they wanted 1 acre. And it didn't work because 1 acre's requirement in the shoreline commercial for commercial. And then the R1 was behind them. And like, you can't use the residential behind it because it's within 250. You can't.
Right.
It's gotta have shoreline, it's gotta have shore frontage.
Interesting, yeah.
So that's why this has been brought up.
Well.
We'll discuss it more, I guess.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just like, other people have other suggestions about what we should do about it. Have at it, because I'm not there.
Like Matt said, I mean, it could say the adjacent resident, you know, the nearest.
Yeah, I mean,
you know, as measured, you know, by a surveyor or whatever, you know. I mean, or it could be the less stringent. I don't know. Typically, you always go for the more stringent, but it depends on, like you say, what you're trying to do here, so.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. Like who defines what policy that the town wants? to
It'll be the
pursue?
town voters at some point.
Right, but how do we determine what that is? Is it part of the do we do it once we get a read from the comprehensive plan? Is it something that? I mean, I haven't heard anything from the planning board. Is.
We haven't brought it to the, you know.
I mean, we had that when Rick was on the committee, we had that go around about what the role of this committee is.
Mhm.
And then, so as a result of that, I tried to write that out and converse with the select board about that. And it was that we were not a committee that would generate policy.
No, we're advisory.
Yes, and we
Correct.
were a committee that would respond to other requests for.
Yep,
I mean, we got the state law stuff and all that.
yep.
So how did this come to us? That was you or Noel's office?
Me,
So I-
since we have to enforce it.
And you
so
can do it.
I kind of feel like that's our role.
Okay.
If the code enforcement officer comes and has a problem
Okay.
with a LUZO,
Mhm.
where else are you gonna turn?
So, yeah,
Right.
exactly.
I think.
Mhm.
And I agree, yeah, this is not an easy issue at all,
Mhm.
but I think it's one that
So
sounds like.
what information do we, it seems like we need to, if we're gonna pursue this, it seems like there's a bunch of information that has to be put on the table, like what's actually within that district, now. Is one possibility that you're talking about shrinking the district?
Shrinking it?
Shrinking the shoreline district or leaving it as is and just defining how houses get built on it?
Well, my suggestion would be to change the zoning to reflect either what it abuts or within a distance
For residents.
For residential use, yes.
Right.
And could that be more of a longer term plan that maybe involves comprehensive plan? Maybe, I don't know, but it seems like this section G needs to be addressed as soon as.
Yeah, like I said, I wanted it this year, but
Uh-huh.
we had other stuff, so I said, fine, we'll wait. So,
But now it's time to.
yeah, this year I thought it would be,
Okay.
because it's been questioned, already.
Yeah, no,
Um,
it sounds important.
Yeah, so, I mean, but maybe Matt and Noel can put their heads together and come up with something maybe that, won't give people heartburn, but like I say, the property owners that own along this area, it's specifically this area that own, and maybe this one, but owns along this area that any permitting that I've dealt with or anything, I've gone by the closest zoning district.
The closest
So-
one just that lot.
Closest
Yep.
shoreline district,
Yep,
yeah.
shoreland residential zoning district, yes.
Right.
Yep. Because before all it said was adjacent. Oh, what's adjacent?
Mhm.
Of the
So,
neighboring shoreline.
Now it's to the neighboring, because before it just said adjacent. So
Yeah, yeah,
adjacent,
yeah.
they were using behind them
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
as well, that's adjacent.
Mhm.
It's residential, it's behind me.
Yeah, I mean.
So
Right,
that's why we changed the neighboring shoreline. Yeah, we didn't have shoreline in there.
Yeah.
So we added that. So at least that makes it easier to say, well, it's gotta be this one or this, zoning. Like I said, the only thing that's changed in those different zones, I don't know why they're different, but is the minimum lot area.
So if we're not talking about jiggering with the size of the commercial district, then a straightforward fix is to say, you gotta meet the requirements of the shoreline residential district that's physically the closest to your lot.
That or change it to the SR, for the residential lots only,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
not the commercial one.
Yeah.
Like, see, this one's strictly residential now. Not sure.
Yeah,
I
I think,
don't know why they
think-
can't make our SR one.
yeah, I was gonna say, I think that if you leave essentially it's saying it's to the closest, is essentially what the language almost says now, but you still have the problem if it's one big lot and there's two different SRs on either side of it, and they're both, again, the same distance from that lot. There's no instruction on how to handle it. Again, it's only like one or two spots on the map where that's a problem, but it still exists technically. And that's where like the idea for least restrictive or most restrictive came from, or it depends. Again, I think it would just depend on. I think a larger conversation that would go beyond the committee is, does SR5 need to exist or something like that? But like to me, SR5 seems like too restrictive, at least in general. And then so maybe it does make sense. Because again, the other spot would just be between SR3 and SR2. And within the shoreline commercial, you already allow 1 acre for commercial uses. So like saying less restrictive, there is no SR that's less restrictive than it's a commercial district for commercial uses. So you're always requiring a larger lot size than what's already allowed in that zone for residential uses. So you could say like less restrictive and it wouldn't be a huge deal, I don't think, but yeah, I could be missing something.
It'll still be more than the SC
Right,
for
right.
commercial, regardless. But like I say, if you could look at the lots too and see what they're closest to in size.
So would it be helpful, between now and the next time we talk about it, if I like just really investigated what exists in all the shoreline commercial patches and kind of labeled them all out, and so you guys can get a sense of the character of each of those areas? Would that be
Yeah.
helpful, or?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Then
I mean.
there's
it's
other
always a-
information. Sorry, go
Otherwise,
ahead.
it just depends. If you're already in a commercial district and you're gonna be allowing commercial activities on an acre.
Hmm.
And the least restrictive option for residential is 2 acres. that seems to me a fairly sizable, I mean, that's that's a decent size, it seems to me, compared to what else could be going on in that district.
My gut says the same thing,
Yeah,
Mhm.
but I would like that information, that would be helpful.
yeah, so I guess why would you want it to be huge with 1 acre?
I mean, if that's the thought, you could also just say, if you're a shoreline commercial, because I don't see, again, we could talk about more once I pull that information together for you guys, but um, you could just say primary residential uses in the shoreline commercial zone have a minimum lot size of 2 acres. And that way it's still larger than the shoreline commercial 1 acre for commercial uses, but it's never requiring unnecessarily large lot size.
Well, over here you have
That's a-
shoreline commercial,
Mhm.
and then you have SR1 right up above it.
Where are you looking?
The
In
marina.
the marina, in Northeast Harbor.
That way.
And then yet Clifton Docks here,
Mhm.
you got 3 acre here and on the other side's SR1.
Mhm.
Right.
I don't know how the zoning happened, but
I was gonna say.
Oh.
Yes.
Boys Club.
Yeah, something happened.
It didn't make sense.
No.
The places that were commercially made residential and vice versa. Like, wait a minute.
Let's do this. We like these colors. Let's spread some color out.
Yep, throw it on the wall, let's stick.
Yeah.
also, Somersville One Stop is an SC.
Oh, yeah.
It's got SR
Mhm.
3.
So really the
Uh,
only place that's a problem though is around, it looks like there's a small patch of what I'm gonna guess is shoreline commercial in Seal Harbor. Or no, it's
Is there anything not
Yeah.
developed?
in
Oh,
Seal
is that
Harbor.
right there?
That's
with
the
the-
That's resource protection.
Oh, that little orange.
Oh, yeah, that's the
The,
Seal Harbor,
Seal Harbor,
yeah, Seal
yeah.
Harbor Pier.
yeah. Guess as you're looking.
It's just hard because it's down. It's
Yeah.
like, we can't see it because it's not inset like that.
Yeah.
We've got it
Mhm.
enlarged.
Mhm. Interesting.
But see, they're all commercial, the ones that we pick out with the
Yes.
exception that Branscome's used to be commercial.
Right.
And then any other you see is pretty
Source
much,
protection alongside.
this is, yeah, this
Mhm.
red.
Yeah.
And then this is shoreline commercial where
Yeah, that's
Stonesville One
awesome.
Stop's the only
Mhm.
one, only lot that's designated shoreline commercial there.
Right.
Mhm.
And then, of course, Abel's the campground.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Or,
Mhm.
yeah, no, that's out here.
Mhm.
That's right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, that's
Okay.
good.
So I guess we finally gotten to the point where the general consensus is that we would make it the lesser. But we want to have you dig a little deeper into what this actually involves on the ground. Does that make sense?
That's clear.
Okay. What else have we got?
Well, that was mostly it. I mean, I can give a primer on LD 1829 too, because that's something else that'll get worked on over the course of the year for town meeting of 2027. And that's state required changes, so like you will be working on that, regardless if someone else tells me to do it or not. But yeah, so LE 1829, I believe a while ago I had provided a summary of it, but I will bring a fresh summary at the next meeting. Essentially, it's a housing omnibus bill that was passed in the legislature this past year. The goal was to kind of override local zoning in terms of amount of dwelling units allowed on a lot, and then also density for dwelling
Okay.
units within growth areas, particularly growth areas when connected to water and sewer or special districts. And so a lot of, I guess I won't say a lot of, but so this was going to change with the comp plan though. It's just timing is not right because the comp plan is going to be voted on in 2027, and you have to have this done prior to the comp plan being voted on. And so the comp plan will kind of inform potential changes, but there are still changes we're going to have to prepare for without the comp plan's input because you have to have the changes ready at the same time that the comp plan is being voted on. So if for whatever reason the comp plan didn't get approved, you'd still have to vote changes forward to come into compliance with the state law around the minimum lot sizes in your growth area and the density for dwelling units in the growth area when connected to water and sewer. And so the LUZO is set up in a way that makes it a little simpler than other places just because you already have dimensional standards that are tied to public sewer anyway. And so I'll have to just get well, I think the Muslim group does have a map of the water and sewer in town. So we'll have to just take that map and I'll kind of bring that for you overlaid with the zoning so that you can see where water and sewer runs and then where your growth area zoning currently is. And then we kept discussions on what those changes look like, with the way the growth area currently is and everything, again, just with the goal to come into compliance with the state law. And then later in the year, if the comp plan process moves and redefines the growth area significantly, we can just talk about it then and see what the impacts might be. But I don't think it'll change all that much because if anything, the comp plan will probably shrink the growth areas because of this law, which is like a lot of towns that finished like Ellsworth. I'm working with them too, and I was planner when we did the comp plan, but this law wasn't a thing. So I made a larger growth area, but now like they're gonna have to go back and shrink it more than likely just because of the effects of this law. Allowing for like pretty rampant growth in certain areas where it doesn't make sense. And so, yeah, so the focus of that is going to be looking at like the R1 district. I think VR1, VC, VR2, those are really the zones that'll be really dense, I think, like after the fact, where you're going to have to allow 4 dwelling units on a 5,000 square foot lot. Again, which is just a quadplex, but it's definitely different than what Northeast Harbor's used to. And I don't think we'll be making any decisions on that necessarily, but it'll kind of bring up, and we could have conversations preparing for town meeting on, again, short-term rentals. Like if you're allowed to build a quadplex in the middle of downtown, is it really going to be used for year-round housing, or are people going to just start building them with short-term rentals in mind? What's the effect of that? Like, what does the town want to do about that?
We don't want to
So-
talk about that.
No, that's not, yeah.
Right. I mean, I don't think we need to have solutions to those because no one's asked us to, but if there are going to be questions that come up in town meeting, we should be able to kind of explain like,
Well,
yeah,
They will
like,
have to.
Yeah.
yeah.
There's more
like-
housing, gonna be more rentals, so.
And like, again, the simple answer is, well, the state's making us do this, so that's why it's here. But also just being prepared with some type of explanation of how like there are controls that we could suggest ahead of time to kind of encourage those new constructions to be year-round housing. They might not be
I see.
acted on at that town meeting, but there's at least solutions that you could incorporate at a later time.
Can, but I'm surprised the state didn't put it in.
I know, I am too.
Buildings.
I'm
I'm
Pointed
really
this
surprised.
They always leave it to town
Yeah,
to do that.
Yeah, but they're not leaving it to towns to decide whether or not 5 dwellings on
yeah.
4 dwellings on a 5,000 acre lot are
Uh,
okay. I assume when you talk about that, you're talking about water and sewer, is that sewer and water, is that correct?
Yes.
just-
Mhm.
Both.
Is that, we know that in the comprehensive plan, we have to address Somesville, which does not have sewer, and does not have water, excuse me.
Correct. So it's, yeah, if it's the way the law's written, if you're in a growth area from a comp plan and you have water and sewer, you have to allow the 4 dwelling units on a 5,000, you have to, well, first of all, you have to allow 5,000 minimum square foot lot size. And then you have to allow at least 4 dwelling units on that 5,000 square feet. And then you can only allow an additional 5,000 square feet per dwelling unit after the first 4. So on a 10,000 square foot lot, you could have 5 units. Which
Okay.
again, you have to allow that with the law.
What
That's a
is the
lot.
definition of a,
Now,
what are they expecting us to comply with regard to the definition of a growth area?
I thought it was, did we talk about this in comp
Or
plan?
comp plan, yeah.
Yeah, the growth area is from the comp plan. And so again, but there's also effects outside of the comp plan, so or out of the growth area. So like if you
Water
were
and sewer.
trying to get kind of cheeky, I guess, like you would you decided to shrink your growth area to just like VC zones and nothing else that has water and sewer is the growth area anymore in your new comp plan. The state said if you're outside of the growth area but have water and sewer, you have to allow 5,000 square foot lot sizes, and you have to allow at least 2 dwelling units in that 5,000 square feet instead of 4. And so they still, if there's the infrastructure essentially to support denser housing, the state told you have to allow denser housing, whether or not there's the growth area or not. Now, if you're in the growth area and don't have water and sewer, you just have to follow the state minimum for private septics, which is 20,000 square feet. It has to be the minimum lot size, which again would have impacts in some parts of town.
Right, if we're VR1, VR2, we only have to have a half acre. Right?
Well, let me just see. VR1 and VR2, it looks like you would have to allow 5,000 square feet. Oh, but right now you're saying in the current zoning?
Yeah, in the current zoning,
It's
if
10,000 and 20,000.
if we don't,
That's
if you
not-
don't, if you
Yes.
don't have VR1, VR2, let's say you don't have sewer. You don't
You gotta
have,
have an acre.
then what do you have to have for sewer?
To 10,000 square feet in VR1,
Yeah,
minimum lot area, and VR2 is 20,000 square feet.
correct, well, correct, but
So now they're saying with sewer and water in the VR1 and 2, we have to have a minimum of 5,000 square feet with
Yes.
this new law.
right, so it's no longer VR1, VR2, actually. It's VR half or something.
No,
No,
it'll still be those, but we just changed the minimum lot area. But also setbacks and stuff come into play, lot coverage. Also, we have a distance between buildings, so we're gonna have to change that in order to
Well-
allow
The sky's.
more buildings or go up.
So kind of, the state law doesn't say anything about, you just have to allow the 3 or 4 dwelling units as a use, but it doesn't say that you can't require setbacks. It doesn't say you can't require lot coverage maximums. So like those things could prevent a 5,000
side-
square foot lot from having 4 units if the setbacks aren't right.
And the distances between.
Can
Yes.
be.
You go up.
You can
Go
go
up.
up, make
You
five.
can go
Store together in
Or
cluster,
you can
Yeah,
have
or
more
a tight
accessory.
cluster,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
like a building.
yeah,
Yeah.
Which we get to look at if where it's one building.
yeah.
So it's not a subdivision anymore.
No.
Correct, yeah. And then that changes the review process. So again, like a smaller change, but still new, is that if it's a 3 or 4 dwelling unit structure, one structure, it can't go to the planning board for review anymore. It has to go through code office review. And if you build anything, whether it's one structure or not, and it's less than 5 dwelling units, it's no longer a subdivision. So then if you want it to go to planning board, you have to build out a review process for it to go to planning board. Which I think that'll be a little bit simpler. That's just a table of use changes. So creating a use for 3 and 4 unit structures, and then, or 3 and 4 dwelling units, and then just outlining, you know, if
Town
it's,
can't tall anyway, I mean, what,
Or that you can get
could you get
you
even?
can go higher now.
Raise the
Oh,
well, you can only go higher if it's affordable housing. If it's,
Right.
if it's just a normal construction, or if it's like a short-term rental construction, you're still limited to what the town already has for height restrictions.
Go higher with planning board approval.
It's obvious that we can be sympathetic to the goals that the state is trying to accomplish in this legislation.
Yes.
But it does not mean that the law applies sensibly to every community, including communities like ours.
Correct.
It does
Mhm.
apply.
Yeah, it
doesn't
applies,
anyway,
but we're
yeah.
not Scarborough.
But I think
Not going-
last year, one of the conferences I attended, the attorneys were saying that the legislators were just tired of communities dragging their feet, and that this was just sort of a way to push the initiative and then you figure out how to make it work. But
Like a blanket.
yeah, like here it is, guys.
That's what they,
Word out.
Figure it out.
That's what they did with
Yes, they
LD
did.
2003 and now this.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to lean with the legislature, but you know, I'm from away, so like, what do I know? But um, yeah, like the idea was really just that towns were saying they were going to do things and ultimately never did. I think the biggest flaw of this bill is that it didn't come with a fiscal note to provide support to the towns to figure out how to handle it. But, and I mean, again, I don't agree with necessarily every detail within it, but I do think they're trying to take their state goals seriously, which is they want to have a certain number of housing units produced in a certain time frame. And so they were kind of saying, okay, well, we didn't see any action from local municipalities on zoning and creating density before when we discussed this, and you said you were going to change and you didn't, so now we're changing for you. And that was kind of the impetus for this.
So my understanding from you is that there's gonna be ongoing tinkering with this?
Oh, for
At the
sure.
same-
Yeah, we are not making any decisions tonight. I'll be bringing a lot more information about it to you to have discussions over a longer period of time. This is just kind of a primer of, again, we're going to be having longer conversations about this throughout the next year. Yeah.
Because this is to be continued and this will be altered. And the other question is, are there ways in which we think it would be to our advantage to have it altered? And are there ways in which we should be thinking about being in touch with our state representatives?
Well, it's already state law, so we do have to make these changes. Now, I guess.
The legislature was working on whether or not they would modify some of these changes.
Well, yeah, and so I do have the amendments that they are thinking about. They haven't actually made those amendments yet, but none of them are changing like the minimum lot size or anything like that. So those things are likely going to stay what they were when they got passed originally.
Framework is in place.
Now we gotta make it work.
Yes.
We could ask our state representative if he has spare time to come to one of our meetings and have it make sense to us.
This was the speaker's bill, I believe, Fecto.
Yes, it was the speaker's
Biddeford.
brainchild.
He's in Biddeford.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Although
changes.
I will say it was his brainchild, but states around the country have passed very similar legislation. Like my hometown, Baltimore, had to pass something similar too, and they're having discussions on, well, luckily they're still in the passage stage of whether or not it actually makes sense, but they're having discussions about why it's not a good idea now, for completely different reasons than Maine is. So, but this very similar worded legislation is happening across the country because it was proven successful in places like Oregon. But they also did it differently than Maine did. So it's like the way that Oregon did it was proven successful, not the way that Maine's doing it.
And Massachusetts has passed a bunch of laws of this sort. They've done a
Yeah.
lot of other interesting things, though. They're allowing towns to have bifurcated tax rates depending upon whether or not a residence is lived in year round.
Mhm.
And we don't have that privilege that could help if we had that opportunity. The town gets to set what that difference is up to a certain.
And I don't know if you did something like that, you'd have to get rid of the homestead exemption probably, but you could just rebuild a structure that includes something similar.
Right, you could have it be a meaningful homestead exemption.
Or you can just dedicate 2 out of the 4 have to be year round,
Yeah.
Yeah,
dedicated year round.
yeah.
Bar Harbor did something like that. You have to, if you're gonna build, you have to make it be year round. Can't be income producing for some.
Oh, you're with the ADU?
Yeah.
You can rent it year round. You can't do vacation rental.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then so they ban vacation rental. There's no size restriction. It can be bigger than your primary dwelling in Bar Harbor
Mhm.
if you wanted to. Why would you? But the
And
thinking
the
was,
state has not regulated that for LD 1829 either, so part of it does talk about dwelling units, but I think you're already in compliance with that, or accessory dwelling units, but you're in compliance with that. The only thing it says is you can't have a residency requirement, so that someone who owns the ADU doesn't have to be living on the lot as well. That's the only thing the state says you can't regulate. Otherwise, you could regulate, if you're going to build new construction in town, again, if you're gonna have these 3 or 4 dwelling units in these certain zones, you could say a certain percentage has to be year-round housing.
I think that's a way to control a little bit of it anyways.
Mhm. Yeah, right.
Does
But then how do you regulate it?
Can't build and recover on each.
Well, again,
unit.
you'd have to, I feel like the town would have to vote on like actual just general short-term rental regulations and then go from there, but.
It's out there like Jaws. It's coming back.
It needs,
Yeah.
In a different way.
it needs to be brought up and actually advocated for,
Yeah.
not just left out there. Take a lot of hits.
Yeah, so next meeting, I'll bring a full summary of this bill, and there's a couple other land use bills that also have to get incorporated, but they're, again, less, I think, A, less confusing, and B, less controversial. But there will be additional legislative changes we'll be making this year too.
Well, it does it does make sense to focus on those things that we know we're gonna have to do one way or the other.
Yeah.
And then just
Right.
deal with.
Well, yeah, the other two I can summarize quickly, the bigger ones. So you're not allowed to have commercial only zoning. You have to allow residential uses in commercial zones now. That's another state thing, but Mount Desert already allows residential uses in its commercial zones, so you don't have to change that. And then the parking requirements, I don't think you guys have like strict parking standards where you require minimum parking for any uses, but you just can't allow, or you can't ask for more than 1 parking space per dwelling unit for residential uses in your growth area, which again, that's an easy change and not really controversial, like just save space on impervious area.
So so do you have to provide parking on your property and you've got 4 houses?
Yep,
Do you have to have 1 per house or no? Just
it's
one on
1
the
per
street?
dwelling unit. Yep, so if you have 4 houses or 4 dwelling units on the property, you'd have to provide 4 parking spaces.
On the property.
Unless you have like an off-site parking agreement, but you know,
Yeah.
that would
It's
at
gonna-
least provide for the parking full-time in some capacity.
Yeah. Is that regardless of whether it's affordable or attainable housing? That's just any dwelling?
Yes,
We-
so the maximum you can ask for is 1 space per dwelling unit in your growth area, but if it's an affordable housing project, it goes to the more friendly bonus that they got through LE 1829, or not 1829, LE 2003, sorry, where it was like the 2 spaces for every 3 units.
Yeah.
Is what affordable housing is required by that law.
Ridiculous. So, Again. Again, in a community where you absolutely have to have a car.
Right, yeah.
We'll have people saving parking spaces in snowstorms pretty soon on the street. Not dessert. Lawn chairs. All right, anything else that we need to get freaked out about with regard to?
Not freaked out, get excited. Got lots of work to do.
Excited, excited
I was gonna say, is there
amendment.
anything with next year? Is there
Hmm?
anything else or?
I think that's gonna be a
Here,
big part of
That's
it.
gonna be.
That's gonna be a big
most
part of it.
time-consuming. Yeah.
Yeah, this is gonna be a lot of work. LE 1829 will be a lot of work.
There always is the question of how much we need to redo. I mean, we started at one point and then it faltered and died, redo the land use table. I mean, that seemed to have some issues or problems that needed to be, it wasn't comprehensive enough, it isn't. It's broken up in weird ways.
I mean, I could talk to Kim if you want. I have a conversation with Noel. Maybe I can just get your opinions on that because I think the table's fine. I mean, again, like land use tables are never perfect, but if there are specific changes that you and Noel had in mind about it, I can work on those too.
That's one that he didn't like the way it's set up.
Right.
Yeah, I
Most of
know.
it-
I don't really like the way Noel wants it set up, so maybe I should just talk to him about it.
Right with it the way it is.
Well, you guys do good.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, the other possibility about that, it was the question of, right now, you allow uses to be considered if they can be argued that they're similar to already allowed uses in the district. And Noel's argument was maybe we want to consider having a much more comprehensive list of possible uses. And then that's exclusive unless and until you change the zoning ordinance to allow some other use that somebody wants.
So if it's not in that permitted
If
use
it's
chart.
not in the
it's just-
permitted use
can't
chart,
do
you
it.
can't do it unless.
Similar to, it's just you can't do it if it's not in there.
Right, so that was a policy discussion and no decisions were made about that. It does allow greater assurance to property owners that of what's gonna happen or not gonna happen around them. On the other hand, the world changes all the time, and if you think you're gonna articulate every single thing that you might possibly want to allow in your town, you're not gonna succeed ultimately, because it's. 'cause
Yeah, and I will say that's ultimately my gripe with the way Noel wants to do it, just that he's making a very finite universe where there's no flexibility for a new or creative idea to come to town. Where I think this a solution would be to look at your definitions for uses and make sure they're I mean, some of them are shoreline zoning definitions, so you have to have them as the state has it, but if they're not, you just make sure your definitions are tight and as clear as can be in that way. In order for something to actually be a comparable, similar use, it's a little bit easier to determine because the definition is tailored to exactly the kind of thing that the town's looking to have when it says like restaurant or retail store. In that way.
Yeah,
Like,
we had to
again,
allow
like-
it recently because we had that, and then somebody wanted to have an office in what had been a previous store. They wanted it's a psychiatrist who wanted to have an office in that space instead, but it didn't fit the precise definition of a store or.
It was a change of use of a
Yeah, so
non-conforming
it's a
structure.
change of use, and we had to specifically allow it because it wasn't already defined. I mean, it was unfortunate, I
It
think,
was
that they had to go
professional
through that.
office, so it-
Yes,
it
professional office.
Hmm.
So anyway.
What is an unprofessional
I was
office?
just gonna say, I mean,
No,
Yeah,
unprofessional would
I
probably
know.
be Pandora's box or
yeah, I was gonna
some
say,
freak
Yeah.
shop.
That's retail.
yeah, that can be retail.
Tattoo shop and down East
East
Harbor.
Actually, I was asked if it was in Soamesville.
Tattoo shop?
Don't know.
Be
It's
a
a
good
personal
location.
service, if you ask me. I think that's allowed.
Was,
Oh, the Higgins.
and I,
store, yeah.
ooh, no. That was-
Extra
oh my
fluoride?
God.
Oh, like
That
a
was awful.
dispensary, right? That's the. We
Dispensary.
had the dispensary discussion in Bar Harbor, like everybody drives to Southwest, but nobody wants the store in Bar Harbor, right?
Drive to Southwest then.
That's the only dispensary on the island.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are we all set?
I think so. I think
Think
we're
so.
good.
Yeah. Anybody have any other questions or comments before we? Yeah, go
I
ahead.
think, thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Matt.
Have a good night.
Thank you. You
Take
too.
care.
Are we set to move to adjourn? Move to adjourn? Somebody move to adjourn? Those in favor?